Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today's video will be definitely a new one. I will be working in Houdini and Arnold this time. So it's not an HtoA course, but as you might know by now, Arnold has a Houdini version. So you can follow along on the shading side of things with all the shader nodes I'm using and all that. I chose to use Houdini today because this is very it is more about creating attributes for the shading network. So Houdini is very easy and very simple to do this with. So I want to show you a few ways to do it, and this one is a very, or I would say rather basic tutorial. By no means at all, I'm not a Houdini artist, so and most of the time I don't actually know what I'm doing. So I came up with this kind of growth effect, and it's supposed to be some kind of hair or some vines or something like that. So what I want to do is generate these curves and render them in Arnold, and I also want to export some Primvars, which can be read directly from the shader, let's say for CD, for color Primvar, or for a radius, which we'll be generating and all that. So this is not my final scene I have created, but I want rather to start with something smaller, which is just a little line which starts to grow, and just that you can see how it's all set up in Houdini and why Houdini might be actually a software package for you. And I must honestly say, playing around with this quite a bit now, it's very comfortable. It's very unique to work with, especially on the shading and lighting point of view. So let's jump right into it and create a line, which will be my starting point for the vine. So you can see if I display my points, we have a bottom and a top point. So I can generate just more points around the curve. Let's say 50 for now. And what I want to do now is I can create an interesting pattern, like something noisy. So you can create a little node called attribute noise and hook that up, and you can just distort the each point position by affecting it using the P attribute right there. Center noise, and now you can already see we have something going. You can choose whatever you want to do as a noise type. I was going for the flow type. You can change your scale of distortion. You can see now it gets really crazy. You can actually animate that if you want. So if I'm scrubbing, you can see now it's really dancing. I want to keep it static for now. And yeah, the next step would be to actually generate a UV set along the curve from the bottom to the top. Right now, we don't have anything on it. So if I check my geometry spreadsheet, we actually don't have any information on it except my point positions. So in order for us to generate a width on this, we need a length. So to generate that, you can just create a UV texture node and change its mode to rows and columns. I guess it was rows and columns. And if you have view from here now and check my geometry spreadsheet, you can now see that we have actually UV points generated, and the index 0, which is X, goes from 0 all the way to 1. And this is what we want. So if I disable the noise for now, oops, like that, there you go. And now you can see we have no sorry, I just wanted to reduce the number of points first. So now we have a curve which is just 0 and 1, and you should see the UVs are only going from 0 to 1. So the more points I'll add to this, let's say I'll add, I don't know, back to 50, you can now see that it goes from 0 to 1, and the noise is just spreading it out a bit. So that would be that. And based on this, I can actually now calculate a radius, which I will need for the poly wire. And the poly wire, I can show you before we actually make fully use of it. If I plug in my curve, it just creates a curve. It just creates a poly object from a curve, from an input curve. It has parameters such as radius, and I want to make a dynamic radius, so this guy is driven by a width parameter. And to set that up, I want to create a point wrangle node, which is kind of a little script editor where you can do things based on certain locations on your input. So you can only run it over points, only vertices, and all that. So right now the UVs they live on the vertex. I want to convert them to points. So there's a node as attribute promotion, and you can promote it, like it's kind of just rearranging it from one class to a different class. So we want to go from vertex to point. We want to move the whole UV set. Now you can see they live inside points. And now I can use my wrangle node, which is my point wrangle. And what I want to do, I just want to create a new float attribute on my geometry. So F is for float, at is for attribute, and then I want to add, let's say we just convert this to length, like so. And length is, you always access attributes using at. So at uv.x. So what I'm doing now is whatever is uvx goes into length. And if I view from the bottom right here, you should see that we now have a new parameter called length, which has actually a typo, like so. And you can see uvx is the same now as my length parameter. And only by using that now I can actually plug that into a ramp attribute, which from then converts me the 0 and 1 scale to a customized width profile. I will show this in detail right now. So let's create a new parameter. Let's call it so float attribute. Let's call this radius, or maybe width is maybe better. Then you can use it directly as a curve shader, like a hair shader. They read width attribute directly. So width is equal to, and now there's like a command called chramp. And then you can give it a name. It's just for a UI kind of purpose to visualize what we're gonna do here. So let's just call this let's just call it width profile, and the input for this will be my length, which we just created on the top, or we can use directly UVX, but it doesn't really matter. So let's just use length like so. And semicolon, that's always a gotcha. Always put a semicolon behind each line. Run it, and now you can see at the bottom here we generated a curve. And if I check my parameters and if I adjust my curve now, you can see that these values are driven by this curve. And if I put both to the top here, you can see that all my values are to 1. And if I move the far right one down, you can see the top, it still is on 1 at the top here, but it then goes down to 0 and less. So 0.002 with 7 zeros there. So this is kind of what we want. And just to make our life easier, I don't want to always go back and forth. I want to create a multiplier, and let's call this is a float parameter. Let's call it mult, and this will be just a float slider. We just call this guy a multiplier, or just mult. Hit enter, semicolon, and then we just multiply our output from the ramp with that little mult attribute we just created. So you can see now it automatically reset everything because my value on default is 0. So hitting this little checkbox or box here at the right, it will generate me my UIs. And now you can see I have a scale for the ramp. And if I really want to adjust the width, I can do a really low number and all that. So very interesting stuff, right? All right, so now let's just use this polywire here and connect this at the bottom and see what we get. So right now, something really funky because we don't have the radius connected right now. So because we stored the radius within our points, we can directly call width from our wire radius here. So let's just type in, I think it should work like that. Maybe it needs to have an @ sign. I guess we try with an @ There we go. So now you can see, if you want to read an attribute, you got to have an @ in the front. And now you can see we definitely have something here. So if I template this and go back to my point wrangle, And now I can just really play around with the multiplier, and you can see now that we almost have control over the chaos here. I think the curve is a bit too broken, so let's see how this looks again. Yeah, so it doesn't really like this big jump there. So we need to make it a lot smoother, or just reduce our frequency, which I will be doing now. Just smoothing it out a bit. I think this might work pretty well. All right, so this is now what we have, and you can see it looks very promising. It's like a growth. It could be like a curly hair, for instance. But all in all, this is what I wanted to create. And in the poly Y, you have options to soften it out, make it more round, more cube-like, or whatever you want to do here, like that. If you don't like these edges, what you can do as well, you can convert it, which is actually also very neat, that's I think why I really like Houdini. You can actually convert VDB from polygons, like so. You have your poly object. Now we have a voxel here. We got to reduce our voxel size. And now we have a lot detailed mesh. And you can see now these edges we had in the poly, they just get like kind of smooth into one shape. And now we can just go back to convert it back to geometry. And we should have a very soft blend between those ridges we had before. You see now we don't have that. If I go to this hard edge, and now this is actually blended together, and it looks actually like a stump or something growing or something like that, right? It's a bit edgy just because our poly wire is edgy too. So if I show wireframe, you can see this is where the edge is coming from. But what I can do before going back to polygons, I can do a smooth SDF, which is just another function to soften our voxels, like so. And you can now see it got a lot smoother here. It's eating up a bit of this geometry, but we can see if we can live with that. Let's template this. So before and after, I think we're losing the nice little edge we had there before. So let's just try to increase our divisions in the poly generation. Okay, so I just went up to 20. Let's just go up to 50, and now it's actually pretty smooth. We don't need the VDB smoothing down here. All right, so this is now our growth. And if you want to have more detail in the top here, you definitely would need to increase your voxel or reduce your voxel size, and then you get more detail up there. All in all, it will get more edgy, so it's something to keep in mind. You can also, while you're in the VDBs, you can also like distort it, add some surface breakups or whatever, and then only then convert back to geometry. But that's up to you. All right, so the next thing is now, as it is right now, it's just static. If I scrub, nothing really happens. So ideally, our little vine here should grow along its axis, right? So to do that, you can just create a carve node, which is kind of just deleting values. I think we should do it after the noise. Let's just see if we need to do it after or before. We want to remove them from the second. So now you can see it's kind of animatable. So if I animate this, you can see it's growing and growing and growing. So I think what we can try is to use this value, and let's just first do keyframes. So on frame 1 it's 0, so Alt left click creates a keyframe, and last frame is a 1, so now I can scrub and it will grow. And going back to all my little things down here, you can see now how it grows. It will also grow as a VDB. It's a tiny bit slower, but you can see it's still doing what it's supposed to. And what else can we do now? So we have our attributes. If you convert from VDB to VDB and back, you will lose all your attributes you had before, right? So what you can do to get it back, you can transfer your attributes back. I'm not 100% sure if that is the right way to do it. But this is just what I kind of tried and got the hang of it. So let's just connect this up, and then we just want to, this should go back to the poly wire, which still has all my attributes, length and width. We need both. And let's just create a dot so it's more obvious where it's coming from. View from here, and we just want to move. We don't need any we don't need any primitives. We just want what did I say, width and length. I think now these guys are transferred over, but I think we would need to adjust our values first. So I'm just creating a color to quickly visualize my data. There's also a visualize node, but I think I can just, let's just use a visualize node. Actually, hitting X will generate that. And let's just visualize length and see how that looks like. So let's just hit length in here. So now the length has been successfully transferred over. Bottom to top, you can see the length is there. You can see it's a bit jaggy. So we can actually try in a transfer attribute just to soften things out. I think is it that. I'm not 100% sure how this works. We can try to just boosting up the max sample count. I think this is the radius where it's looking for, and then this is how many samples it will gather to soften out the result. So now it's taking 50 points in a radius of 3 units. I think 3 units is a little bit large. Not even sure if this is if it's accurate. Yeah, it is accurate. So let's just do maybe 0.5. And now we should get, let's go a bit higher maybe. Okay. So now it's softening out my values. You can see it's nice and smooth. And if that is not enough, you can also, I think, I'm not entirely sure either. If there's like an attribute blur, you can just blur them out a bit. But it will actually affect the the outcome. So I think, was it length now? Yeah. Length, yeah. So we can blur it. You can see now it gets even softer. And now this is super soft, and this is what we want. So we now have a value from almost 0 to 1. And let's just see what the width looks like. Okay, so width, we would need to do a ramped attribute like so. And this is always just displaying the thinnest parts versus the thickest parts. So root to tip to root. So blue is a tip. So you can see whenever an object is thin, it kind of is blue, and when it's thickest, it's red. And this is actually pretty good already. We just might to blur it out in the beginning too, just to get a more even result. I'm not sure if I can actually add 2 in here. Let's see if that works. Did work. So now we're blurring both parameters. And this is now very interesting because you can actually use this directly now in a shader. So this is kind of showing the principle of what I wanted to show you guys. It's about now, so the next step would be to actually get it rendering. So let's just save the scene. And to do that, I just want to create a material down here and just go into my shading setup. Let's just close these guys down, go to my shop, create a new material. This is kind of the shading engine. Oh, sorry, this is the shading engine. So let's create a surface shader, hook this guy up like so. And then we head back to our object level. We go in here. And this is our material. And I just want to assign this. So I just want to choose my shader to assign. I guess it's Vob. I didn't rename it. So let's just hope it's that. Yeah. Let's just maybe call this one our Vine Vop. or ASN maybe is better. Vine ASN, there we go. So now we're in here, and let's see if it's actually still assigned. Yes, it's still correct. So now let's head back up one level. We still have a camera, but I just want to we still have a light, which is good. I just want to create another camera. So if I view from here, just first create an output node like that. That's my final output. View from here, go up one level, and just create a camera. Or you can actually just choose a nice frame. Let's say we want to go with this, and just hit Control Camera, and it generates a camera from view. Tie to view. I'm not sure what we want to go for here. Yeah, that should be good enough. All right, so we have a camera as well, camera 2, and we have our geometry. So if everything went well, we can just head over to our render view and hit render and see what we get. Oh, it's still rendering camera 1. We want to render camera 2. There you go. So let's just rotate our camera. And ideally we would move this to the side. Was it Shift or Control? Shift. Yeah, I just need another pane here. So just where do we want to do it? Just split it left, right, and we just want to go. Let's see if we can move it over here. Don't think so. There we go. Okay, so we're in the camera. I just want to tie those views. If I rotate now, we get it updated. We can actually just move the light. It might make our lives a lot easier if I just move the lights. Let's just close this guy back up and go to our light. And you can see Arnold is still running in the background, so no need to refresh it. So go to transform, just move it 10 degrees and see until we like something. I'm always a big fan of sidelit. Something like that is pretty cool. All right, so if you want to subdivide, you can do that in the Arnold displacement tab. Subdivision tab, do cat clock subdivision, refresh this guy. Now we should have a smoother render. There we go. All right, so let's go back to our shader. Let's see if it's actually active. So if I change my base color, you can see it's black. And we have our normals working correct. So if I change my roughness, we should get a pretty rough vine here. All right, so let's say I want to change, let's first just read in an attribute. So we have exported, let's just make sure we don't move it anymore. So on our final object, we have length and width. We don't have any UVs right now. So I'm not sure if we need it, but let's just work with length and width. And let's maybe also output a color. So we create a color, hook this up. And you can see now we got a color per point, like it's a point color, vertex color. And we want to drive it with an attribute. Let's say ran from attribute, and we just want to use length in this case. And let's just choose something nicer. Let's say it's kind of a growing thing. So the bottom ram color is kind of a brownish color. Maybe something like that. And the benefit of doing this in Houdini is if you have an FX artist, you can actually generate your color and you can just read that directly into your shader, and then it's all in the same ballpark, right? If they do tweaks, they can output a new CD color. You can remap it or grade it a bit, but in all, this is a lot easier because you can see what it's intended to be used for or something like that. Okay, back in here, so let's see what our shader looks like. We might need to restart, but let's just test it. So I'm using user data RGB, and my attribute is CD, and just pipe this RGB into my surface, and you can see it's black. And let's just refresh the render, and hopefully they get transferred. Even that didn't work, so there must be something wrong on my end. First of all, one thing is to make sure you're actually viewing from the bottom, from here. And now let's just restart the render. There we go. So now we have the render restarted. I was just changing my output to the bottom here just to be sure we have all our settings. And in the color node, you can actually see that it will write into CD if you check in our attribute geometry spreadsheet. You can see CD, R, G, and B, which is our color. So heading back over to the render view, you can now see if I switch to my shaders here, this is our user data, which we just changed, let's say in the effects world. And let's say this shading thing is lighting, a look that I've seen. It could be Maya, it could be wherever Arnold is being supported for. And you can change it. So let's say effects changes the color of this. So all you gotta do, all they gotta do is change a color, and it will directly affect the shader once it's being re-exported. You can see it's not an on-the-fly thing because you're actually writing data to the geometry. But let's say that's a change. I just re-render, and you should see a different color in our shader. Okay, so let's make use of this. So we have a user data. Let's just plug this right into our base color, hook up the shader again, and now you can see our base color should be driven by this if we have actually base enabled. There we go. So now this is our basic shader driven by a Primvar. Okay. So what else you can do is we have width and we have length too. So let's say we want to change the roughness based on, or let's say we want to control a bump map based on the age or how thin it is. So thinner branches shouldn't have a bigger bump, right? So let's first create a noise which will reflect our, let's say, our tree bark or any texture we have on this little tree stump or vine. So first is making sure we are in object world, changing our scale and increasing our detail levels like that. And let's add some distortion, maybe just, I don't know, it's just something, right? And this will go into our bump map, which will be connected to the normal slot right at the bottom here. Let's just make this all a bit larger. So we have our normal under geometry, create a bump to denote, hook up the a grayscale value. In this case, just hook up red to the map, and the vector, which is our normal, goes into the normal. And let's view the shader like so. And you can see it goes really crazy just because the values are super high. So reducing the bump to 0.001, you can see now we get some breakup. Let's go maybe 0.01. Definitely stronger, definitely more detail, which might be too much already. So very gently playing with the bump, reducing my roughness so we can actually see some specular highlights on this. I still think the bump is too strong. Let's just go lower. Okay, and now let's go up on the, is it actually, let's see. I don't think progressive rendering is on. I always like that feature. So I'm just turning on progressive render like so. We always have a progressive update. And that's off, correct. Okay, back to the shader. So now let's just tweak our roughness a bit more. You can see now something is happening, which is very nice. And let's just say we want to control our bump height, or we just create a multiplier in here, right? So we just create a, is that working, Molt? I'm not sure. I think we need a math component here. Wasn't this called math? Maybe just multiply. I'm not sure if you can plug in a single value though. Let's see. Let's just use length. So we create a new user data float. Make sure this guy is reading length like so, and just pipe this quickly into our shader just to see if it's actually doing what it's supposed to. And you can see now we have a grayscale ramp. This is a multiplier, so 0 times a value is 0, so 0, we want it to be no bump on the top, so the tips need to be black and not white, so we gotta invert this. So I'm just surprised to not have our math nodes here. Oh, it just called not math. Okay, we want to do an invert. Let's see if we have it. Otherwise we just do a basic invert. We just do a subtract, so we do 1 minus. So let's just go up a value. This is 1. Hopefully this works too. Oops, not displacement. Let's see. So let's just hook it up. So now we have. Now it's definitely inverted, which is correct. We did 1 minus, and we want to do a range because we want to control our values a bit. And hook this up to my surface. And now we can actually control it. So we want the tips to be pretty black. So let's just move these sliders, and you can see we get more and more contrast in this. Okay, like so. I think that's pretty good. And the bottom is white. So we want to move this over too. So hitting I, you have a pixel probe. It's 7.9 at the bottom, and it's we need to clamp it, enabling smooth steps so we don't go below 0 and not higher than 1. And we just want to reduce our input max to move our white parts a bit higher. So everything which is fully white will have our maximum bump. So it goes less 0.8, 0.4, 0.3, and then the tip is 0.1. It's 1. So we actually want to make sure it goes a bit higher. So we want it to be kind of around this area until it's off, like that. And we want just have a minor value here. So it's on 0 by now because we clamped it. So we can just put in a default minimum 0.001. So this just makes sure we have something here, and we have max bump at the bottom. All right. So this is our multiplier. So let's just connect this up, and this will go into our bump map. We can actually put it into the height too if we want to, but this is now driven automatically, and we don't have a multiplier for now. We just hook it up. Right, goes in here, and let's see if it actually works. Oh, let's just first see the result. So we have stuff happening, and then you can see it just fades off to black. I'm not entirely sure if it needs to go to 0.05 or if we just need the multiplier in the height. Let's just do the multiplier in the height because I think this might not work. The bump is on 0.05 it's off. So I'm just creating another multiply, and instead of connecting we have it here. Okay, so I don't need this. I'm just connecting our noise as we had before right into the bump, and the multiply output goes into the bump height. So now we have a value which is our default 1. So at the bottom here we will get the full amount of the bump. So let's just switch to the shader and see what we get. You can see now it's super strong here, and it goes to 0 towards the top. So we just want to have our minimum value to be something really low. So let's just do 0.01, and now you can see we have a bump at the bottom, and then we have a very soft and clean tip here of the vein or vine root, and you can see it's gradually getting larger. And this is now driven by the range, which is driven by the length parameter. So this is a way how you can actually read data from Houdini or from attribute data into your shading network. And one other thing we can do is actually have a bit higher range in here. So 0.01 is actually almost off here. So let's just have our lower value to have something stronger. So we can see slowly we introduce a bit more bump in this. You can see now it's getting broken up to the top here, and the bottom is a bit too strong. So I don't want to really have such a strong bump. So let's just go maybe 0.5 here. Okay, so this is now reducing this by quite a bit, and we're back to how we were, but it's just not as strong as we had it. Obviously, you can color grade your user data or your shading data. So just create a color correct node like so. Hook these guys up. Base color. Do some gamma, whatever you want to do, like add more contrast, desaturate it, and you can also again desaturate it based on a value. So and this time let's just use the same the inverted ramp for driving our color correction. We just use this, which is a bit of a clamped version of this. So let's just use the red channel, hook it up into our mask. And now you can see only certain areas of it get graded. You can see only the bottom gets graded. So now you can do, I don't know, darken the bottom of the vine or whatever, like so. And what else can we do? We still have the width parameter. And let's say you want to have very thin, let's say you want some scatter in those tips, right? So right now we don't have a scatter shader, but let's just kind of create one quickly. So first we just want to user data again, float, and this time I think it's width we used. Let's just hook this up into our surface of the shader. All right, so whenever it's thin, we have black. So let's just do a range. Connect this up. This should actually be not the min slot, but it should be the input like so. And we just want to range it. So we really just want to get the tops here. So let's just check what value we have right now. We have 0.01. So let's just change this to 0.01. And now everything should be white. If smooth step is on, everything here should be white until 0.01, and then it should gradually fade off. And let's just check before we did it. Oh, I'm not sure what's going on here now. Let's just reconnect this to input, and I'm not sure if this, okay, it was just this. Okay, never mind. So before we had a value, let's just connect this. So the minimum value we see is 0.006. All right, so let's see if we can actually do that correctly now. If I bring this back to life, our grade node. Not sure, it's not really. Okay, 0.006 as my min. 0.006. Okay, so now we have the top fading off. So I want to only have the tips to be kind of scattery. So we can now actually move it up until we're satisfied with the length of that value. Let's say something like that is nice. And then we want to invert this. So what you can do, I think you can just do invert those values, the output min and max, and you get an invert. Now you can rebalance it if you need to. Whatever you got to do, and this will drive our trend, our specular. Sorry, not specular. This will drive our subsurface. Will drive this value. So you can see now it's off. It's off, and then it's on for these parts here. Let's see if this works. So if I plug this into subsurface like that, and let's just see the shader. So something in the top is happening. You can see there's like a fade off. Let's go into the subsurface values. Okay, because it's connected, it thinks it's off. So I'm not actually sure if that's a bug, which we need to report. I guess it doesn't like a connection here. Maybe it can only be on or off, but let's just do it like this quickly and just see if we can actually put in some values and just see if we can get it to work. So our color, subsurface color, is our same color we put into the base. And then the tip works pretty nice already. And let's just see if I connect it back up now, or if you can get something. Yeah, it doesn't like it. Oh, sorry, that was the wrong connection. Let's just connect this here. And I think it actually does work. It's just the UI. Oh, well, now the UI is fine too. Okay, no, it works. It was maybe just an update issue. So now you have a scatter shader for the tips here. But the bottom, starting from here, is fully diffuse. So it's not recommended to mix diffuse models and scatter, because it's either scatter or fully diffuse. But it should still do the trick, and I hope you see the power of what I was just showing you here. And it's just, I'm not sure if it will actually work if I just switch frames now, if it will grow. I think it will not work because it's not retranslating. If I do this, does it retranslate? No. I would actually need to fully restart the render, and you can see now different frames how our little vine is growing. It's up there. It takes a bit of time, but you can see now the tip is nice and scattery, and then it just kind of fades off. So I think this video was pretty interesting, and please let me know if this is something you would like to see more in the future, just because it's a bit more technical, and I got a lot of requests to show more advanced stuff, more technical stuff, something which is more pipeline ready or industry ready. And definitely something like this, just to be able to first of all request the data. So if you work in effects or you work in look dev, it's just important that you directly know what you need to get a specific look you want, or you got to produce for your soups or whatever. So this kind of thing is understanding how the effect side of things work, and then how you can actually make use of it. And yeah, please let me know if this is something which is great, if you want to see more of these kind of things, more advanced, more technical stuff like that. So and before we finish this off, I definitely want to thank my patrons for supporting me all the time. It really keeps me motivated, and I want to thank each and one of you for supporting me. It's really great, and even like I cannot talk to everyone like privately. With the ones I did, it was a really great experience, and I was really happy to help you guys out, mentor you guys for your show reels or for your projects and all that. So I'm really looking forward to helping more of you guys, and just again, I really appreciate all the feedback I'm getting. It's really driving me to produce more content. So thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you definitely in the next tutorial.